name is Tracy Chen and I'm an immigration lawyer. I am the principal lawyer at Mason Chen Law Group. We have a number of lawyers and migration agents who work across Australia. I'll drop a link below with our contact details for those who want to get in contact with us to have a consult with myself or one of our migration lawyers or agents. So today's video is about permanent residency pathways for those who are in IT occupations. So first of all, I just want to discuss what type of occupation we'd be talking about. So IT occupations is very broad, but it is for those with a profession with an ICT major. So we're not talking about graphic designers or, ICT sales representatives, for example. We're talking about software engineers, ICT business analysts, as well as computer network professionals. Now, this is just going to be a very broad kind of overview of what visas they can apply for and a very basic overview of the eligibility requirements for these visas. First of all, because this is about applying for a visa that is permanent residency in Australia, or at least it leads to permanent residency in Australia. Basically, all these visas are the 482 temporary skills shortage for some passport holders. You may not need a skills assessment. So all the other visas I'll talk about today definitely need a skills assessment. It has to be assessed by the assessing body, which is Australian Computer Society. But for the 482 temporary skills shortage visa, basically you can apply for this and the skills assessment is only required for some passport holders. So a very general overview, you need a full skills assessment for a lot of these visas that I'm going to talk about today. So to get a positive skills assessment, if you have an overseas degree with an ICT major, then you need at least 2 years of post-qualification work experience in that occupation. So for example, if you completed a Bachelor of Information Technology with a major in software engineering, then you need to have worked as a software engineer post-qualification overseas for 2 years to get a full skills assessment by the Australian Computer Society. If you completed that degree here in Australia, so for example, a Bachelor of Information Technology with a major in business analytics, then you would either have to work for 1 year as an ICT business analyst post-qualification, or you complete the professional year program in Australia. Those are the very two basic requirements to be able to get a skills assessment. Now, if you didn't study an ICT major degree, there are some other pathways, but basically you need more work experience. I'll drop a link below to the requirements for the Australian Computer Society, but those are the two very basic and most common ways to get a skills assessment. So just remember, for most of these visas, you're going to need to pass an English test. For example, for the skilled visas, the 491, 189, 190, all of those, you need a minimum of competent English, which is 6 in each band for English. However, you may have seen my other videos that basically 6 in each band would be very hard to get an invitation for any of the skilled visas. So you probably need to be aiming for 8 in each band, which a lot of people actually sit the PTE English test instead, which equates to 79 in each band, which would be superior English. And that's just across the board because that's what everybody else is scoring. So when my clients ask me, do I need to score 8 each? I say, yeah, you do, because like the other applicants in the pool, they're scoring 8 in each band as well. So first of all, we can talk about the 189 visa. So that's the skilled independent visa. So when I advise my clients, I always tell them, hey, look, this is a great visa. You'll get everything and you'll apply for it. Don't wait on this as your only option because it's pretty hard to get an invitation in this visa. So with this visa, first you need to be invited to apply. So you need to complete an expression of interest or skill select. You need to have minimum competent English, which is 6 in each band. You need to have an occupation on the medium to long-term occupation list. So software engineer, ICT business analyst, all those occupations are actually on the long-term occupation list. And you need to score the highest you can because this is based on points basis. So I think previously this program worked really well because, you might have some applicants with 65 points. Actually, years ago, the minimum cutoff was 60 points. And years ago, and I don't even know how long I'm actually talking about, yes, people invited at 60 points. If you had 80 points back in the days, oh my gosh, you would have got an invitation like pretty quickly. Like I'm talking days. 80 points these days probably won't even be considered. So I think before COVID hit and all of that, there was a bit of activity with the 189 for IT occupations. You were looking at 95 points. I remember when I was working at the beginning of 2020 in an immigration firm and my senior was actually telling me 189 visa, doesn't matter what occupation, if you don't have 95 points, don't even think about it. However, during COVID, there were some other occupations that were invited under 95 points. So that's very interesting to see as well. Secondly would be the 491 and 190 190 visa. It is very similar to the 189 in a certain way. That is by invitation only. So you'd have to complete an expression of interest on skills select. However, for the 491 and 190, basically you have to be nominated by the state. So one of the states by South Australia, by Victoria, by New South Wales. So in addition to whatever the legislation says in relation to 491 and 190 to be eligible for an invitation, you also have to be nominated by the state. So you have to go to the state's individual website and review those requirements to see if you meet them. So I'll give you a very basic example. For example, last year in Victoria for the 190 visa, IT occupations was on the hot list. So lots of invitations for IT professionals. However, you had to meet the state requirements. And for example, for IT, the state requirement was that you had to be living and working in Victoria. You had to be using your STEM skills. So in IT, that's pretty easy. Technology skills, that's pretty simple. And you must be working in a target sector. And there was lots of different target sectors. So you could have been an ICT business analyst working in agri-food, or you could be a software engineer working for a hospital, so therefore you're in the health sector. However, there was a whole digital sector. So basically for us, we were like, oh, okay, cool. Well, most of our applicants fit under the digital sector. So that was basically the requirements. You had to complete an expression of interest and skills select as before. But for the application to actually be recognized by Victoria, you had to also submit a registration of interest. And then they basically match the two together. And if your application met the criteria, then you'd get a pre-invitation, then you lodge your application, and then this and that after. So that was how the process is. Whereas with New South Wales, it's a little bit different. It was by invitation only, but you didn't have to fill in anything else, but you did have to review the requirements. So there were some requirements such as they had an occupation list, and then some applications they were only inviting onshore. Some occupations needed work experience and some did not. So all very strange. But basically for New South Wales, you just lodge a skill select and expression of interest and you wait for a pre-invitation. So that means that New South Wales was purely based on the occupation ceilings as well as points, which I don't really like that system. I think that there's no transparency. And to be honest, they say it's by points. They say it's by this and that, but people were telling me, hey, I had 95 points, but my friend with the same occupation had 90 points, got invited. And they're like, how did this happen? And they emailed New South Wales and New South Wales said, that's impossible. That would never happen. But apparently it did. So it's really, really strange. So that's why to me, I'm not a big fan of New South Wales. But again, at the end of the day, New South Wales does invite quite a lot of applicants each year. It's just very hard for me to gauge it, especially when clients engage us as professionals to help them with the application. I want to give them something back. I want to be able to help them strategize and, do this and do that. Whereas Victoria, we could write a registration of interest and we could, do things to sell themselves and all of that. But in New South Wales, it's just an expression of interest. And how are you supposed to pick the best from that other than from a points perspective? But there is some people that are extremely talented that basically are what the skilled visa program in Australia would be looking for. But they, for example, just can't get that 8 in each band for English, so they lose 10 to the other applicants who have 10 points more, but they have way more experience and they're super, super talented. And I guess that's what the Global Talent Visa program is for.